Welcome on back in. For some of you, a third time today. Are you ready to jam? We kind of are. Let's get talking about writing a TTRPG.
I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push my mind to a limit where it needs to feed. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe. Need to find more power in the way I be. And when my mind turns sour with the painful scenes, I need to scream out loud, I can't stop me. I wanna be the greatest like Rocky. You know I leave them all hating like a hobby. I'm out here making moves like a lobby. And if you ain't with me, it's your loss. See, I got my mind on the facts. I'm a python, grab what I like real fast. Till until I have everything I attack, everything that I lack, everything that I want, and I see matter of fact.
Welcome on back into writing a TTRPG with us for the Myrna Annals. We are working on the Ancient Egypt campaign. Baka's back. Baka's back. Holy cow, finally, Baka's back. How you been there, big bro? I apologize for the Loki noise in the background, though. Watch out. How is you, bro?
Oh, everything's been going fine. You could say it's Spitfire. Oh, no, it works. Well, that's pretty much, it summarized it pretty well, actually.
He just rolled a nat 1 and confirmed it.
That one twice. Unbelievable. I can't.
Okay,
Broken It's like, nope, that one works. Okay, never mind. I should probably pick these up. Don't play with fire. I'm a professional.
He thinks he's a professional, but I know what certain people in this
don't need to know that.
have done. Anyway, so we are picking back up. Did you hear that? Did we hear what? These are mostly notes that Baka has added in since the last time. And if you're like, what are they talking about? I'll get you links on the last time while he explains.
All right, so let's see here. It has been a hot minute. It's like, did you hear that? Did the party get ambushed? Did anyone notice the antagonist make a big show of threatening the protagonist? Is there a chance the protagonist could get caught off guard? The storyteller should roll a stealth skill roll for the antagonists, and then ask the protagonists to each make a perception skill roll. But don't tell them why yet. No one likes spoilers. So this was the initial, kind of conversation for, determining surprise and if an encounter was to go for a fight, I believe. We were going to add to the additional, the primary rules, because I think we went back to a previous section, section 2, what are the rules? So I was going to establish, a dialogue where, okay, first thing we need to do during an encounter is everyone aware of the encounter, and that would affect initiative. Is what my initial plan was. Let's see. And we go into it. So the next line, determine which protagonists or antagonists are surprised. If they are, they do not get any actions, even reactions, until the first casting call. In casting call, I believe, is what you wanted to call initiative to make it more in line with our narrative-driven rhetoric.
Correct. So for those of you who are used to more of a D&D D20 mindset, this is where you start rolling your D20s and start lining up those. We are not necessarily using the same scores, but mechanics therein apply.
Right. So we're using a slightly different system. For those of you just tuning in, why do you watch the other episodes? What are you doing here? It's also hi. We are using a 3d6 system, which is going to be very similar to a d20, but with more, it's got our bells a little more curvaceous, if you catch my drift.
Instead of rolling 1, you're rolling 3, so on and so forth. We get more of a roller coaster effect.
Yes.
In my opinion, this works better for magic. D20 works better for melee. I could be wrong, disagree all you want, but
I mean, it will be interesting to see what kind of quirks unfold from the system, because as far as I'm aware, no other system really does a 3d6. The closest I've seen is Disco Elysium with 2d6, and that's about as fun as you think it is. For those who know Disco Elysium, you know what a good time it is. But I also agree that to writing, though. All right, that being said, oh, yes?
I was going to say, with that being said, literally you took the words out of my mouth.
As it is. All right, so the first call. So each character goes in turn order of the casting until all but one protagonist has taken a turn. Once the last protagonist casting is called, we produce or proceed to the second call. So what I was proposing, say we just take everyone's initiative in the first call. We go down the list of whose turn it is, whether it be the protagonists or the antagonists. Then we get to the last protagonist on the list. And at that point, that's when we do the whole, okay, all the players go, and then all of the antagonists go.
That would probably be, especially if you're talking about possibly a game setting of where you may have three, 5 or more people, that might be the smoothest action pattern to take.
Right. That way we deal with whoever's like the speediest. They'll basically get an extra turn. Unfortunately, whoever's last in line will lose out on that. But at that point, the game is going to go like a lot smoother because then we won't have to wait for, the player or the protagonist characters to line up whatever they want to do, because they can do like their turns all at once, basically do all the damage they want to do in one go, and then the antagonists get to retaliate, or any other forces involved, like allies, or maybe not antagonist forces, but forces that work against the player, like if there's any environment effects going on, for say any magic effects going on that are out of anyone's control, silly stuff like that. All right. And then, as we continue every preceding call, each character gets all their actions refilled unless certain conditions prevent them from their actions refilling. Then the protagonists decide which of them use their individual actions in order they want to use them. This continues until they're either out of actions or choose withhold, possibly for reaction. So what I was also proposing was a 3-action economy, and I didn't care too much about whether it's a main action or a minor action, movement. It's like your actions are actions. And I was like, okay, what if that's also their reactions? So say I want to have my character go in, use their 3 actions to first one to move. So I move towards like these monsters that I want to punch in the face, and I use my last 2 actions to punch them both in the face. I'm done. And then they get their turns. I'm like, well, what am I going to do my reactions? Can I block? Can I parry? Can I run away? Can I turn myself invisible? Nah, bro. You're out of actions. You already ran in there and punched 2 guys. Now it's their turn to ruin your face.
You can't react until they react, and the chain continues. Yeah.
So it will give players kind of a push and pull kind of decision whether or not they want to use all their actions to do something offensive. Like we could have some spells that probably are more powerful if they do use all their actions or more than one action, kind of like how Pathfinder 2e does it. Or if they want to save something for like a reaction, like if like an archer's tries to shoot one. Oh, I'm going to dive under this table real quick. It's like, okay, yeah, go for it. Otherwise, nope, you stand there like a pole and you get shot like an idiot, because you already used all your actions. All right, let's see. Once this happens, any antagonists that remain get to spend their actions as the storyteller sees fit. This continues until the protagonist or the antagonists are defeated or they withdraw from the scene.
Now, that withdrawal from the scene can be for a number of reasons, especially if you have certain environmental factors in play, like earthquakes and some such too. Because, keep track of those, because they can get squirrely if you don't, storytellers.
I imagine that, not every single scene is going to be, every single encounter is going to be to the death. And I did want to talk about stakes at some point. I'm not sure if we'll get to that today. Hey, if we do, that's cool. If not, oh well. Speaking of which, non-violent scenes. Not all scenes need end in bloodshed. Most of the time, you may not need casting for scenes if it can get resolved by role-playing conversations or skill rolls. But sometimes you'll need to keep track how long certain actions take, so you can have a casting call for these times. Consider using a different trait other than Grace if the encounter calls for it, but Grace should be the default if nothing else fits. So I figured, Grace is going to determine which characters are going to react to a physical altercation the fastest. If maybe it's a heated argument, you might use a different trait, like you might, or even, what was the one for logical arguments? I think that was acuity. Yes. So you could have like acuity, like if you were in a debate, if you had to see like who went first, you could use acuity or something like that. Maybe a wizard's duel. If two mages were using non-lethal like rituals, trying to like outsmart the other, kind of like, of course, the classic Sword in the Stone where they did a wizard fight or whatever. But
this is kind of your Among Us moment. You don't necessarily have to, throw somebody out of the airlock, but it can simply be a good moment to even just exchange information for the sake of getting information.
Exactly. And then most of the time it might not even need a casting call. If the players just want to have a conversation with the guard, or if they want to have a conversation, they want to have an argument with a merchant or something like that, could just play out naturally with role play. You might not even need a roll, but there might be a situation like maybe a court where there's a banister or whatnot, and they have everyone speak in turn, and then that could determine like, okay, it is your time to speak, make your case. What is your counter arguments, and et cetera, and so forth.
Gatherings, they're so fun, and I imagine the next part of the document plays right into that with the merit system, if that's where you're going next.
Yes, it does, actually. So I did want to explore the approaches we had with the merit system, because you mentioned you didn't want to use traditional experience points, whereas, you go out, you do missions, your character learns from them, ergo gets stronger. So you are more focusing on, okay, you have done something for an organization, and therefore we're willing to give you more resources, which does open up some nuances. And I believe we can still approach this two different ways, similar to the current like XP system with Dungeons & Dragons. The first one is straight up merit points MP. So this would be the bean counting method. So each task the protagonist characters accomplish, they're awarded with merit points based on how difficult the task was, how much it helped their faction, and other factors the storyteller determines that could come up during play. And each faction rank would require a fixed amount of merit points, which we can determine whatever it is because it's our system. We can do what we want for a protagonist to gather before increasing their rank. Each rank would require incrementally more merit points. Again, that's what we can determine to acquire the next rank. Missions with greater merit rewards would be available to them because they would be of a higher rank. And again, this system wouldn't mirror other experience point systems, but since it would be tied to the faction, they could be denied merit based on their actions, as opposed to Dungeons & Dragons per se. You wouldn't deny them experience points because they failed the mission. It's like, well, no, they went out there, they killed these monsters, they should still get the experience points. And then not to mention, such actions can even lead to demerits. So they might have succeeded, but not in a favorable way towards the guild. So they might, okay, we'll give you the merit, but we're also going to give you a demerit. So that would probably penalize them in checks they make to influence the guild in the future, because they'll have that stink of, upsetting the council. Like there'll be some grumblings with the higher ups or whichever faction they take, because it might not always be the council. It might be
Yeah.
a different organization.
It could definitely be someone like, say, for example, they partner with a human outsider to help them for just a single mission. Even you're right, it can affect those conversations big time too.
All right, and then the next one, similar to another experience system, also with Dungeons & Dragons, is milestones. So similar to merit points, this will require less calculations, but each rank would require a certain number of milestones in order to acquire next rank. So less calculations needed, but each milestone would be a judgment call on the storyteller to award the protagonist. So a milestone would probably be like either a certain mission or quest completed, like a certain story beat towards a particular character's growth. Like, let's say there's 4 characters in a party. They each have like their own goal that they want to ascertain. And during their adventures, not only do they complete a quest objective from their organization, but one of them finds out like something about like their personal quest. Like they find a clue towards something they want to achieve. So that might be considered 2 milestones because there was 2 story beats that were picked up in that particular adventure. And then less calculations to be done because you wouldn't give them points for every single thing they do. It's like once they do enough things that are significant, and all of a sudden, hey, another rank. And then, I did explore demerits even better. I'm glad I followed this. Thanks, me.
I was going to say you went thorough on the demerits. I was thankful for this when I reviewed the document recently.
All right, so even if you ascend the ranks of the faction, your actions could cause some members of your organization to grumble and scoff at your efforts. Demerits can be given to either the party or a specific protagonist and could increase the difficulty of encounters with members of your faction. So I would imagine if you were trying to influence members of your faction and you have accumulated demerits, then those demerits would be added to the difficulty class of those skill checks. So it would just be harder to influence people of your organization because they're like, yes, you have done things for us. However, you've also made us look like jerks in the process. And, you know, like you can still continue to work for this organization or but it's going to be difficult to get like any benefits from it other than what you get from your rank. Otherwise, if you did it in a more favorable way, you could, like, say, ask for supplies, ask for extensions, maybe ask for another chance at a particular mission if you know you didn't complete it in a timely manner. It's like, oh, please, but we have this information. We could try this again. We could save this, you know. And then, you know, while they're twiddling their mustaches, like, yes, well, there was this other incident where, you know, you blew up the bathrooms or whatever. Or privies or whatever they're going to be called.
You're sounding very much like a certain headmaster from a certain magical academy with awarding points versus I can only actually give you 50. Or should I say
only 8 credits of 50? What's up with that?
Like, or a little bit like the fear here is, are we going to go like, you know, whose line is it anyway, circa early 2000s of do the points really matter?
I mean, they should matter. Like, if we're going to integrate in our system, it should be. Let's see. These demerits stack if the party continue to perform in a manner that displeases their superiors, and any rolls made that are lower than the number of demerits towards such members should be considered a fumble. So, say you have 5 demerits, and you roll a 3. That should automatically be considered a fumble. I mean, it should be a fumble anyway, based on how we did the dice, but I figure we can increase the range if they continue to be jerks, and they continue to do jerk-like things. And I figured you get so many demerits, there's going to be a point where like, okay, why are you here? If you're going to continue
you have to give not only the storyteller that option, but the fellow cast members that option to be fair for sure. So I like that you gave that balance option.
Yeah, I mean, at least the guidelines, and, you know, it's going to be a case-by-case basis if a particular protagonist or the group in general just continue getting demerits. It's going to eventually end in a dismissal. Speaking of which, demerits can be removed after doing services for the faction without doing other actions that get them additional demerits. Alternatively, the protagonist can spend either gold, merit, or provide additional services to remove demerits based on individuals that gave them the demerits. Keep in mind, any attempts to convince these members to take such deals with skill checks would still be affected by their current amount of demerits. So it would be riskier as well to push these kind of things on your fellow organization members, especially your superiors. But you could, maybe do less favorable quests that are more dangerous. You could just give a little money. Like, here, let's do a donation. Okay, here, let me remove this demerit. Or
there is something to say about throwing money at a situation in these games for sure.
And look, all players that want to accumulate wealth so they can buy better stuff. But, I figured that could be another option. Like, okay, what if we just paid for the damages? Would that make all these consequences go away? Like, okay, that could be a option if whatever issues that arise for demerit can be solved with monetary issues. Like, we burnt down this building that was part of the organization. What if we rebuild it? Okay, never mind. Good job. No harm, no foul, I guess. No one died mysteriously during this fire. Good job. Like,
this is how a certain somebody's character sets fire to all of London in 1666 and gets away with it. Exactly how.
In my defense, London started it. Look, if the city wasn't so damn flammable, it wouldn't have been so easy to burn down with a single lantern, is all I'm saying.
That is exactly what you did to a degree. Congratulations.
It was a psyop. Why was London just so easy to burn down with one lantern? Come on. All right. And I did go over like some of more into detail with advantage and disadvantage. If we scroll down a little bit, let's see. So what is interesting with 3d6 is unlike regular Dungeons & Dragons where they're like, okay, say I have all these favorable circumstances. They don't say, well, you can roll 3 d20s, because that would be silly, I guess. But in your system, we could just keep adding a bunch of favorable conditions and just keep adding d6s, and then just say, yeah, just take the highest 3, champ. You're doing well. At the same time, we could have multiple disadvantages and just say, yeah, add another d6 and drop the highest. Take the lowest 3. Good job. You're doing terrible. Let's see. And then, of course, any instances of advantages and disadvantages cancel each other out. So count the number of each, and whichever one has the most will determine how the roll's influenced. So if you had, like, say, 2 favorable conditions and 1 unfavorable, it goes back to single advantage. So you get 4 dice, roll them, take the highest 3, and I think that would create some interesting interactions with your game.
Especially given the court system with the elders, yes.
Yes. I do remember coming up with a scenario myself where, like, an archer is being carried by a rock in the air, upside down, at night, while drunk. It's like, well, in melee with a threatened natural weapon because the rock still has its beak pointed at the archer. It was like, I think it came out to like 5 like quintuple disadvantage, and they're like, all right, let's see what happens. You
like making the archers work for it, don't you? But also it lines up more specifically in the court for anything with the elders in the novels. For the Myrna Annals to vote on anything, they need a 2/3/3/6 vote, because of that's how many chairs there are in the circle applies.
If that's how that hierarchy is set up, that's how it's set up. But I imagine that all.
So the dice with the disadvantages also kind of falling in that 2/3 versus 1/3
Oh.
definitely lines up as where I'm going. So good use of.
All right. That's that was a happy accident. All right. And I think I did go into like some of the meanings of the major arcana. I didn't complete all of them, but I was trying to.
Far.
Yeah, I went pretty hard trying to come up with what these cards would actually do when drawn. And I think I had a couple of neat ideas. These don't have to be the final ideas. These are just things I was thinking of, like the Fool fetches a card from the discard pile. Please return the storyteller's card to their deck after use if you use one of their cards.
Yeah, it doesn't say whose discard pile is why that clarification is important.
Exactly. And let's see, Magician, they can change the card suit to a wand. I figured that would be most appropriate based on the Magician's obvious use of magic. Either to make it viable for a roll or disqualify it, forcing it to be discarded. So you can use it on someone else's card and force the suit to be a wand so it wouldn't work on you. So I figured...
And given the Magician's role in the tarot deck as alchemist and balancer of all skills, this works really well.
And a lot of them are going to have similar effects, though. Like the High Priestess can change his suit to a cup. The Empress can change it to a pentacle. And the Emperor can change a card suit to a sword. So, like, the first 4 after the Fool have similar kind of effects, which I thought was fitting as well, to have the kind of a certain pattern. Let's
Correct.
see. Then there was the Hierophant. I think the Hierophant was a little different. Changed the effect of an even card to an odd. Instead of changing the number of the die to a fixed number, it will apply the number as either a bonus or a penalty depending on the card's facing. So the Hierophant can change whether or not you're using an even card and then switch to an odd, as opposed or vice versa. So it's kind of like that could cancel out some weird effects too, or even make it worse.
That's what I was thinking. The potential for worse definitely applies.
Then let's see, the Lovers can change the effect of an odd card to an even. Instead of adding, so it's pretty much the same thing where the Hierophant and the Lovers can switch things around number wise. So they deal with the number side of odds and evens. And I was thinking like the Lovers turns it into an even because there's 2 of them. So they would always come in pairs. But the Hierophant, I was thinking they would change it to odd, like a prediction, like it was considered like an oddity or like a weird. So that was kind of where I was going with that. Chariot. Either allow your character can use another trait in place of your zeal, determine the effects of an even card, or add your zeal to another trait, determine if they can affect you for the rest of the scene. So I might go over this later because I don't think I've established this yet, but I was going to make it where certain attributes will determine like how well you could resist certain fates.
That's what I thought it would apply to. Yes, perfectly so.
And then some of the cards would basically either make it where you could add like a trait. I think it was grit. Like if your grit was higher than the other character's might, then it would be harder to affect you with certain cards from the fate deck. And then the Chariot is one of those cards that can turn it upside down, make it more favorable to you. And then Strength uses your might. Hermit, let's see, uses your grace. Let's see. And then the Wheel of Fortune uses acuity. So again, those were similar effects I had. And of course, none of them ascertain a grit because grit's the default. And whoopsie daisy, had a order there. Justice can either give you a number of fate points equal to your highest trait that you can use for the scene, or you can give fate points equal to your spirit to any character that can be used for the rest of the scene. So I was thinking like Justice could inspire either justice in oneself, so you can use your fate points, which would allow for either rerolls or giving advantage, similar to inspiration in D&D. Or
I was just thinking, this is going to be big for your helper role characters.
Especially if you have a really high spirit and you inspire someone else to stand up and just get a ton of fate points. And I figure that could also go over what their maximum would be, so it would be temporary, so they have to use them for the end of the scene. And then
kind of like a limit break. I love that.
Yes. And that's interesting you say that, because Final Fantasy just came out with the Magic the Gathering set and limit breaks.
I've heard.
Oh man, you haven't lived until you got like run over by a Tifa landfall deck. Jesus, like. No, she ruined me. Like, I was so mad.
I'm sorry. That's a sentence that I thought I would never hear in my life. My inner teenager is so confused, and yet I was playing
Magic the Gathering Arena. I was playing Magic the Gathering Arena, and I got destroyed by a Tifa deck. Like, Tifa Lockhart just came out of nowhere with a knife, and she's like, "Give me all your money." I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." It's like, I was so mad.
No one's telling Tifa no. Just saying.
Well, it's funny because I played Boros, so I'm basically the cops. She's a terrorist. She comes out, she starts beating my ass, and I literally have a card that says, "Not on my watch." And she just gets thrown out of the game, and then you just place another one. I'm like, oh no, it's happening again. I'm like,
speaking of all the ones for you to skip, you didn't have anything for...
Yeah, I was looking for a good one for death, but Hangman...
Well, in most tarot decks, it represents rebirth.
Yes.
So is this a regen card?
So I didn't think of a good one for death. I was trying to go down the list, see if I get inspired. Maybe regen. Hangman was probably the first one I thought of where you would just change the facing of a card. Because again, most of my knowledge of the tarot deck comes from Persona. And in Persona, I don't know why, but the hangman is always depicted as hanging from his foot.
Yes,
which that's not how you hang someone.
It depends on whether or not you're looking at more like of a Marseille deck or a Light Seers deck or a true traditional Rider-Waite tarot. But normally it's from the ankles, representing the fact that you need to hang yourself upside down to see the world in a new light. So the fact that you're literally reversing it to get a new angle on it and therefore more enlightenment is definitely spot on for the hangman in this regard.
Exactly. So I figured do a Uno reverse card as your hangman.
Exactly what it's good for in mindsets.
But a lot of these cards you could basically call an Uno reverse because you can change like the effects of like the card anyway. It's just the hangman's like literal, like, no, turn upside down, screw you. You know.
Yes.
Let's see. Temperance can be discarded. So a used card can be returned to the hand of whichever player or storyteller used. Is that going to just be... Wait, is that just similar to what the Fool does?
I was going to ask, how is this different from the Fool? Normally, Temperance refers to a level of patience applied here.
Card can be returned to the hand, whichever player.
That's the key part.
So it's for yourself. So the Fool steals it from the discard, but my thing was Temperance you can use to get like any card that you would have just discarded. You're like, but I'm going to discard Temperance instead, so you get to use that card again. Whereas I think the Fool just fetches from the discard pile. So I think the Fool is more strategic, and the Temperance is like, well, I want to use this card again, so I'm just going to discard Temperance, so I can use it another time.
I'm going to be impatient, is what you're saying by using that card. Got it.
It's like, dang it. You're telling me I missed the point. Then there was the Devil. I figured that was like some kind of deal. Like discard a card to play and instead draw the top card from the Fate deck. Can be used even if you've already accepted your fate. Which accepting your fate was when, say, you don't have any cards in your hand,
right,
and you're like, well, I still want to use a card, so I'm going to draw the top card from my deck or from the Fate deck, and then it's going to come into play no matter what, like unless it doesn't apply. And then you could do that. You can accept your fate. Oh, nope, I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to use the devil to discard a card and play instead of draw the top card from the Fate deck. So again, if it's decided that doesn't make as much sense, we can always change it. But that was just what I was thinking, where you can
makes
get out
good
of
sense.
trouble. But you would have to discard a card to do it.
Now for the tower, would this be our discard your whole hand, start over? But you have to use all the cards that, like, you see this sometimes in like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! They both used it with cards where you have to discard 5 cards, draw 5, and you must use or keep 3 of those 5.
Well, we could do it in a way that's, if you were to play it face up, you could force another player or storyteller to discard and draw like a fixed amount, like we can say 5. Because maybe they have like 13 cards in their hand. You're like, nope, discard, draw 5. Or if it's upside down, like you do it to yourself. So that way, if you Uno reverse someone using a tower, like, nope, discard your own hand, idiot.
That'll work.
And you're like, oh no. So, I mean, that works for me. Yeah, that definitely does match. Like the whole tower, like rebuilding after, you know, like a major disaster or whatever.
Okay. Star and moon and sun. So these are going to relate to the sun is the outer self, the moon is the inner self, and the star is what you wish you would become. If that helps at all.
Right, and I might need more time to determine what the mechanics of those would be, because these are like the higher kind of concepts. Because I know after death, we escape like the earthly. From what I understand of tarot, we escape the like earthly concepts. At that point, we're like in like the heavenly concepts.
Yeah, that's why you got to go through the Hanged Man to get there. Exactly.
Yeah. I just know like after like death is like the cutoff for like once you cross death, you're like no longer dealing with the mundane everyday kind of stuff. That's like stuff that like this is like could impact major like universal stuff. It's not something that most mortal people will ever like deal with in their lives. Like, you know, the stars, the moon, the sun, you know, unless you're an astrophysicist, you don't deal with that kind of nonsense every day.
Correct.
And then I did have a couple ideas for like just the suits. If we go down to the minor arcanas, so we have the evens, like we said, it's a set dice number. The odds either add or subtract to a number on a roll. And then there's the faces. These I try to come up with really cool ideas, like the page. The page changes one character's die to a 6 and can do one of additional effects. You can reinforce, like if it's face up. Roll an extra die for the roll. The extra die is not discarded, unlike extra dice added for advantage and disadvantage. And it can still trigger critical successes or critical hits, as well as avoid fumbles. Then there's sabotage. If you play the page upside down, the page removes a die from the roll. Yes, you can choose the dice that was changed to a 6.
That's cruel. That's just cruel, by the way.
Like, okay, change the dice to a 6. Now get rid of it. And now for that roll, you have 2 dice to determine whether or not it's a fumble. And that could be really scary. Then there's the knight. The knight changes one character's die to a 6 with one of 2 additional effects. So face up, there's all rise. So you increase the value of all dice in a roll by 1, even the 6s. And then there's stand down. Decrease the value of all dice in a roll, even the 1s.
Oh, a 0 roll.
You rolled a
That's
0.
potential for a null set. That's horrible.
Set, you lose. Good day, sir. Like you turn a 3 into a 0. It just feels bad, man. Well, I mean, so they roll it. There's still going to be a 6 in there, and then you reduce all the die rolls. So I think the lowest is still going to be a 5. That's still a fumble in your system, though.
I was just about to say that's like almost a face plant level fumble.
Yes. Then there's the Queen. Queen changes one character's die to a 6 and can do 1 additional effects. Queen's Blessing. The character's roll counts as a critical success or a critical hit. So basically, make your critical success threshold a 7, because I don't know if that would conflict with the fact that if you roll less than a 6, it's still a fumble. So we might have to change the wording on that now that I think about it. And then there's Off with Their Head. The roll counts as a fumble. So I figured that would be an interesting mechanic where you could just force critical hit, force a fumble, as long as you have a queen in your hand with a suitable suit. So bear in mind the suit has to match the situation unless you cheat with one of the major arcana. And then there's
very
the king.
much resembling of the queen's role in chess. I appreciate that mirror moment.
Yes. And then there's the king, which I went a little wild. It's like, what if you just did all of those effects at once? So the king changes one character's dice to a 6 and then adds 1 or 2 additional effects. There's the Royal Decree. So you get an extra dice to roll. That die is not discarded. You raise the number of all dice, even the 6s, and then it's considered a critical success or critical hit. And then there's Exile, which literally does the opposite. You remove a die from the roll, you reduce all numbers by rolled by 1, and then it counts as a fumble. And that is just a horrible time when you get the best roll of your life, and then someone throws at a king and puts you in exile, and you're like, oh no. So it's like, yeah, one of them's a 6, but it's going to get removed. All the other dice are lowered by 2, and it's a fumble. No matter.
Hi, Jenna.
Wife says hi. Even at that point, the highest roll you can get to 10, and then it's still going to count as a fumble, and you're going to just feel terrible. But I mean, that's the whole point of Exile.
That's the whole point. If you've gone that far, you probably did something to deserve it based on the merit system and fumbles combined. So we went on also then for...
Yeah, so for the suits, I was proposing that you can't just play a suit whenever. But depending on the situation, the suit might, what your character is doing, particular suits might come up more often. And we might need some more input from you on this, because this is what I proposed for, like, say, each of the 4 suits that appear in a tarot deck, when it would be appropriate to use them, so on and so forth.
And this will line up really well with, like, the role of each coven or clan for the different types and who follows what deity. We'll have to tweak the magics because they're not exactly on point. We're close. We'll put it that way. But more importantly, like the suggestions of what gets diplomacy, manipulation, creativity, so on, those are more in line.
Yeah, because I was doing my best with what information I could glean with all the different tarot that are out there. But I figured if we incorporate magic into these situations, at that point, well, you could probably drill down what spells would be more appropriate for certain suits, as opposed to water magic, earth magic, air magic, fire magic, whatever the heck that means. I didn't know how well you wanted to go with, say, like the 8 schools of magic determined by Dungeons and Dragons. As cool and innovative as it was, I didn't know if you want to steer clear with it, because even Paizo decided to, like, go away from that thought, and they came up with their own
we have a color-coded system in the Myrna world that already exists. I forgot to send that to you. Because eye colors can kind of tell you what magic they use is what it's related to.
All right. Fair enough. And then that, if we can shove those 5 colors in with these suits, then yeah, we can definitely do
10 colors. He means 10 colors.
Oh, 10. Sorry, I thought I heard 5. I'm sorry. My ears are getting old, I guess. My bunny ears.
No, your ears are working fine. I totally didn't tell you. This is why we have these sessions.
My brain is turning into Swiss cheese as we speak.
I'm sorry. I had coffee about 12 hours ago. It's starting to deplete from the system as we wind down. So definitely,
coffee has a half-life of 6 hours.
Don't tell my brain that. Anyway,
like she knows. Anyway, all right. I guess we can go over like where we want to stick those colors later. But then I think this red line, I think, is where we hard stopped. Yeah.
Yes, I think you're correct.
So everything after that's going to be something we haven't discussed yet anyway.
Because we need to clarify other things, to be fair. Especially like these kind of things of who gets what and what decks and Baka. There's Baka and so on.
Hey, what happened?
I lost you. He's back. So I now have homework, y'all. I now have homework, which we're kind of wrapping up right about on time and a little early. I need to check in with you on scheduling for July and so on and so forth.
Change all of this stuff that we covered today to
black
automatic.
Text.
I was gonna say automatic. I can't find black on my on this thing. It just says automatic.
It's his default. It is default. So we are probably looking at hanging out, my dear friends, somewhere around mid-July or a little after, because your girl's got 2 cons to go to next month, and we both have holidays next month. So,
all right. Well, I guess it's time for me to flip the script and assign you a little bit of homework there, Miss School Teacher. So I was thinking heavily on what we want to do for, say, how do you determine if your character is hale and healthy, dying, and dead? And the way I see it,
given that we have things such as vampiric turning involved.
Well, either way, I think we'll have to determine how alive your character is going to be at any particular time. And the way I see it, I have 2 proposals. One, we could use a vitality system where you have a certain pool of vitality points determines how many times you got to get stabbed in order to not have vitality and thus pass away into the next life.
Understand, Brutus.
Or 2, we can do like a hit system where we just have boxes that we determine based on whatever we want to determine. You have certain hit boxes, and whenever you get hit, you lose X number of boxes, and then that determines whether or not your character can stand. So
for a sports comparison, this is like in tag football when they take your 3rd one, you're out. Got it.
Basically, so that would be I guess I'll call it a wound system. You would keep track of how many wounds you have, and instead of an arbitrary number of vitality points to determine whether or not you go down, it's like, okay, if you get X number of wounds, this happens to you. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in a state of you're woozy, you're lightheaded, your character can't see very well. If we're going to do that, if we're just going to say you have full might and vigor up until you're at 0, and then you're on the ground bleeding out, like saying weird stuff like, "Mommy, I just need 5 more minutes." Like,
right.
Also point out your liver. Shouldn't that be on the inside? You know.
So this is why, like in video games, like with in the Legend of Zelda games, Link gets more hearts for a reason as you level up too. So that would be something to negotiate as part of like the reward system. Everyone at say level 5 gets an extra heart applies, or you can find them.
He also finds random hearts in jars and thinks it's a good idea.
That's why I said that. That's why I said make them quest items. Make them collection quest items.
It's like, ooh, I found a heart on the ground. I should keep these. And that's a good idea, apparently.
I found this doll of a child. It's a one-up.
It's like, and that's the logic of video games.
I want to know how he managed to carry all that stuff in Zelda 2 without breaking anything or his back included.
But hear me out. How did James Bond carry all those weapons in GoldenEye? Yeah, like Master Chief can only carry 3 guns if 2 of them are pistols.
This is fair.
And he can flip a tank.
We even got the categorying.
Like, and he can flip a tank. It's like, nope, 3 guns, you're max. Sorry, Chief. Them's the rules. The James Bond over here.
The rules.
James Bond over here. I can carry 1 instance of each gun ever made.
That's actually something I need to clarify. Like with dual wielding with actions and stuff, we'll have to talk about too. Like to repair your weapon because we have ammunition involved in this game. We got to account for that. Yeah.
That will be an interesting thing to discuss, whether or not dual wielding would be considered 1 action or 2 actions.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good call. I do have a couple of things I could say about that. I can write those up. Because there was an interesting take I saw on dual wielding in one system. We'll save that for later since we're trying to keep it under 60.
Yeah, both of us want to go eat dinner. So, with that being said, y'all, I think we're going to hang out
next. I got some delicious wings that my wife just delivered to me, like the angel that she is.
And they're enticing him. They're saying slither hither. And with that being said,
slither hither. That's a thing you just said in front of all these people on the internet, and you're proud of it. Wow. Just wow.
Dude, I literally claim that I'm a nerd professionally. On that note, see you next time, y'all.
I wake up every minute with the fever dreams. I push my mind to a limit where it needs to be. I work blind, got vision I don't need to see. I'm picking mind over matter, I believe in me. I need to find more hours in the day to breathe.